Hello and welcome to Adobe InDesign Custom eCards. My name is Caitlin and I'm a library instructor and research specialist for the Plano Public Library, and today I will be assisted by my chat facilitator, Matthew. Please say hi, Matthew.
Hi there.
Today we will be covering how to set up and format a custom eCard in Adobe InDesign. This class is meant for beginner users. However, all skill levels are welcome in this class. We will be using Adobe InDesign to format all components of a custom eCard, but there are free alternatives you can use, such as Microsoft Word or Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is available online and it is specific to eCard creation. However, I would recommend using Adobe InDesign for some more personalized options rather than using free templates. If you do not have access to Adobe at home, currently all 5 of the Plano Public Library locations are offering access to Adobe Creative Cloud, so you can edit your custom eCard and other projects for free at any of those locations. All right, and if you have any other Adobe related questions, we do have our online archive of past programming on our Plano Public Library YouTube channel. So let's get started. What is Adobe InDesign? Adobe InDesign is an industry standard publishing application for print and digital media. It allows for ease of access for page layout and web design. It's useful for flyers, books, magazines, newspapers, interactive PDFs, and more, like eCards. So with our eCard creation, where do we start? We're going to first start with, what is the purpose of your card? Are you wanting to congratulate someone? Are you wanting to send a message like happy birthday? First, you want to establish what are your goals for creating your card and who do you want to send it to? Secondly, you want to think about the style of your card. Do you want to go with something that's a little bit more traditional, like this image right here? Happy holidays. It's very traditional in the sense that you could print this out and it would still look great. The style right here, congratulations, it's a little bit more modern in the sense that the typeface is not as regular and consistent as the happy holidays. So think about the style of your card because that will also play into your message and the purpose. And thirdly, we want to establish what platform you will be posting your digital card to. Will you be sending it out through an email? Are you wanting to have an interactive component? Do you want to update your card with more personal messages? These are all options that you have in InDesign, and it's important to establish what you are wanting to create prior to getting into the software. So some eCard styles, these are going to be pretty much the same as a paper card. So you can have a card that's all about personal relationships. It can be conventional and messages. It can be inspirational, humorous, or interactive. And what I mean by interactive is going to be, in paper format, you think of those as like a pop-out card or something that plays music. Digitally, you can add animation in InDesign, or you can add music element. You can add all of those kind of fun interactive elements that happen with a click when someone opens your message. So these are some of the examples I have. So we have traditional elements, and we also have ones that have been saved as a GIF. But in InDesign, you can create a similar effect. Any questions so far?
No, it seems like we don't have any questions just yet.
Okay. Do feel free to ask any questions as they come up. All right. So getting more into the components, I do want to say that it's not required for your card to use every component listed here. Use what is going to be applicable for your needs. So Some of these are just going to be a given that you'll have with your card. You want to have graphics. You want to use the correct dimensions. So if you're going to post this to social media, um, Instagram, for instance, you want to make sure that the image you're saving is going to have the correct digital dimensions to save properly and upload in a good quality. You also want to make sure you have a readable font that whoever your intended recipient is going to be can read the message that you're trying to convey. If you're going to use this as a business reference for your business and send just a happy holiday message, you may want to include contact information. You may want to have a logo. Personal messages, that's also usually a given with an eCard, but you could leave that out if you're just going for a generic message. And then we have these fun elements such as animation and background music. And these are things that you would use if you're going for an interactive card. And I can show how to do some of these basic elements. All right. So before we jump into InDesign, I do want to highlight the key tools that we will be using in the software. We have our direct selection tool, also known as the black arrow. We have our type tool, which has that T, and our rectangle frame tool, which is this square with the X through it. Okay, one final thing that I'm going to show before we jump into the software is going to be some online resources that you can use for your card. I like to download and save all the images that I'm going to use for my project before getting into it. So Pixabay is a great online free image library, and you can search for generic images, you can look for specific images, and right now you can see that I have it set to vector graphics. Vector graphics are going to be a great image quality that you can use for anything you're going to do that is interactive, because it is a linear based image. So that means if you're going to publish it online or use any kind of social media, it will size automatically to that scale without losing quality. And your final result quality is very important. Anything that you create in InDesign, you want to be thinking about the final output. You can also specify color, transparent background, a lot of other factors that go into the graphics that you are using in your project. Another resource that is free that you can use at home or in the library is Google Fonts. And this is something where you can search specifically for a type of font, serif, sans serif. So anything that is going to be read digitally, sans serif is actually the recommended route because it's easier to read online. That being said, certain styles of messages do work better with a traditional font, which is going to be a serif font. However, if you're going for a personal message, you may want to try something that looks more like a handwriting. And these are all options that you can select, change, and even type a message to see how it would appear in various font. So for instance, happy holidays. You can see what a preview of that would look like. And if it's still not quite what you want, you can adjust with more properties. You can specify a thickness, a slant, width. I personally really love variable fonts. Those are fonts that you can adjust the width and height. And they're also normally an open sans font, which means that Adobe will support that font. Now, for instance, if we were selecting this, you can download the family and then import that into InDesign. That way you don't have to merely copy and paste what you have there. You can actually import it into your software. And it's a great resource for getting the exact kind of font that you would like to use without paying any kind of money or worrying about the font not being supported. Are there any questions about that?
No, we're still good over here.
Okay, so we are now going to jump into Adobe InDesign. Now, at this time, we are going to create our web page, and you can do that a couple different ways. You can select create new, or you can go up to file, new. In this case, we're going to create new. And as you can see, it's going to have a couple preset options pop up. So you could create specifically for a phone. You could create for a lot of different options. Because what we're doing is going to be web-based, you could work in pixels. I personally find it just confusing to work in that size. I think it's easier to work with something that you're familiar with and make sure that you save it as a file type that is going to be legible regardless of what screen you're going to be on. Okay, so I don't like working in pixels. I'm going to change that to something familiar like inches. And as you can see, pixels translated to inches is going to be huge. And that's clearly far bigger than an iPhone X, but it's about how everything translates into that measurement. So it may not actually match up. So if this is confusing to you, that's okay. Working in a print presetting is not going to harm your final result. So if you're looking at something and you're just like, this is not making sense to me, that is perfectly fine. You can work in whatever size as long as your final result is exported and saved appropriately. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes total sense.
Awesome. So for the purpose of this example, we're just going to go ahead and operate in a half size letter format. We're going to turn off facing pages as that is a print setting. When you have more than one page for book formatting. And the same goes for margins. If we're going to publish this digitally, we don't have to worry about print margins. All right, going down further to our settings. Again, these are print pre-settings, so we really do not have to worry about those at all. What we are most concerned with is just making sure that our file type is set up in the appropriate size. And we go ahead and establish a name for our document. And if you don't do this, you hit create, that's okay. You can always come back and change it or save it later. So we are going to call this eCard example and create. I apologize for any lag that my computer may have. So as you can see, this is our workspace. And personally, I have been heavily trained by Microsoft Word. I like to view everything in the top ribbon. So I'm going to switch from Essentials to Essentials Classic, which this is our switcher at the top of our screen. And you can change that to any preset setting, or you can actually save new settings for your workspace right here. And how you would do that is actually go up here to this top menu bar, go to Window, and you can actually open different panels that appear over here on the right. to personalize your workspace. And over here on the left is going to be our tool panel. And that's where we will switch between the previously mentioned black arrow tool, the selection tool, our type tool, and our rectangle frame tool. Now, right now, my panels are not set up with everything that I need for today's class on eCards. So I could either go up here to the switcher and switch to digital publishing and see what features pop up. And this does have a lot of what I need, but I still like having all my other panels up as well. So what I can do is actually either add to this layout, or I could actually go back to Essentials Classic and open the additional panels that I need. So in this case, I'm looking at interactive components and I'm looking at animation. And I can click and drag this over. And as you can see, it now lives in my panel. The other one I want is going to be the EPUB interactive preview. So any interactive element that we add to the page, you can preview it there. And we're just going to take a look and make sure I have everything else that I want. This timing panel is also very useful. Okay, so we have our workspace set up. Now it's time to start adding things into our digital eCard. So first and foremost, I like to outline what my page is going to look like. And there is a good rule of thumb where you can create layers to segment elements that you're going to have. A good way of thinking about your layers panel is going to be that they're sheets of plastic lying on top of each other. And that's the same within layers as well. If you have multiple elements on the same layer, the things that appear on top are on top in that layer. But if you need to have elements in that layer to interact with each other, then you want them to be on the same layer. It can get a little confusing, and it's one of the hardest things to first figure out when you're dealing with both text and graphics, but I typically try and have a layer for my graphics. It'd help if I can type. And another layer for my text. And typically I want my text to be on top. So this is actually a great order. Now, another important aspect is whatever layer you have selected, if you were to draw a box, so you can see that outline is red because it's a part of the text layer. Now, if I select graphics and I draw another box, you will see that it's blue because it is on that second graphics layer. Now, I don't need a box for my text. I need that to be the T tool. I need that to be something I can type in. So I'm going to delete that. And with this rectangle frame that I created, I actually use it as a placeholder so that I can place whatever file I want inside of it. Another aspect that I like to show is if you create your page, your workspace, and you're like, I don't like how this looks, it's not the right size, or it's not the right orientation that you want to work in, there's a couple of different ways you can change that without having to exit out of the document that you're working in. You can actually go up here to File and go to Document Setup to adjust your document without creating something totally new. So in this case, I think I want to work in landscape, and I can preview that, make sure it looks right. Yeah, I think I like that a little bit more. It gives me a different vantage point for what I'm creating. So I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to adjust what I've already created on this page. I'm going to close that for a moment because I think I want to zoom out. I'm a little zoomed in for this, and I like to see my entire page whenever I'm first setting it up. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Oh, I zoomed in. Whoops. You can click down here, or you can also hold your control minus or command minus if you're on a Mac as a keyboard shortcut for that. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is take that graphic placeholder that I've created, and I'm going to drag it to the size of my page. So I think that'll be good. I can get a nice background image in there, and then on top of it, I will have my type. So somehow this is on type on a path tool. What I'm going to do is switch that to my type tool. And I also want to go back to my layers panel and select that text layer to make sure that this new placeholder that I create is going to be on top of that graphics panel. And I can go ahead and type happy holidays. As a digital eCard, it's going to be a great contactless way to send a personal message to those that you care about, or just those you want to send well wishes to. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my black arrow. So a good rule of thumb with Adobe InDesign is everything is rinse and repeat. If you've done it once, you'll probably do it again. And if you're ever curious about the view of your document, you can preview it here. We'll do that a little later when we actually have more on the page. But if you find that you're not seeing the X show up of on your layers that you've created, you may want to check your view panel to make sure that that is set up, because otherwise it shows you a print preview or a publish preview. So you want to make sure that that is set in normal. Okay, so this at least gets things on the page. What we're going to do now is actually select that second layer. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can either use your keyboard's shortcut for Control D, or you can go to File and select Place. And what we're going to do is actually import some images that I have already downloaded from Pixabay, which is that free image resource I mentioned earlier. And we're going to go ahead and import one of these images. I think we'll do the snowflake. So as you can see, this did not import as it was viewed in that preview of the image. And how you fix that is pretty simple. You right click that image, and what you can do is go to fitting and fit content to frame, fit frame to content. You're going to want to actually fit content proportionally first, and you can see where the gap is. And then if that doesn't fit exactly right, go back to fitting, fill frame proportionally. So now it doesn't have that gap. What we could have done is resized it a little bit, but this is much easier to do than the other route. Now, if you liked that and you wanted a white edge, so I'm going to Control Z just to show you that other option. Rather than fitting the frame manually, you could go back to fitting and fit frame to content. without having to mess with it. However, I do like the fill option best for what we're doing today. So we're going to fill frame proportionally. And because I want to ensure that this is a high quality display, we're going to make sure that our display performance, which again, you just right click on the image and you can adjust the display performance to high quality. Now we were pretty lucky. This one imported with a pretty good display. Sometimes you will place images that show up really, really pixelated. That happens sometimes. But it is easily fixed within the software. Because anytime that you are placing an image, you are actually linking it to your document. So it has a source file to go back to. And you can view that here in this top panel for links. So anything that you place into your document will be viewed here. And if there is ever this kind of, oh no, exclamation point highlighted, it means that a link is broken and you want to relink it to your official file. The image will still be here, but unless you relink it, you can't guarantee a high quality display. Are there any questions about that?
Nothing so far. I think you've been explaining it pretty well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, I have that text that I wrote there earlier, and it's blending into the background. So what I want to do now is actually look at what I have in terms of the background, the color, the font type, and I'm still in my direct selection, my selection tool. So it's not going to bring up those text options. Now you can either double click and it's going to switch automatically to that type tool, or I could just click the type tool. Either option is fine. If there's one thing I can convey is that there's a million ways to do the same thing in InDesign. There's no wrong way and there's no real right way to do something. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to go up here to my type, my font menu, which again, this is why I say I'm trained by Microsoft Word, is because this top ribbon mimics a lot of the features of Microsoft. Now, the great new feature that they have here is that you can actually filter your search for font to match whatever need or style that you want. So the same as Google Fonts, you can see you can have Gothic, you can have serif, you can have sans serif, you can have a bold serif, or even like a calligraphy effect. So for this, I want to go easy to read, but still stylized because it is a happy message. So I'm going to see what comes up for the calligraphy. But I do want it to be a heavy weight because there is a lot going on in the background and I want to make sure that it is easy to read. So because I have that text highlighted, it's going to automatically give me a preview of what I have available. Now, I'm not sure that I am a big fan of any of these. I think Lobster 2 is probably the closest to what I want. But I'm still not sold. So what I'm gonna do is actually go back to my filters and I'm gonna unselect the handwriting effect. And I'm going to go to maybe, I'm gonna see what Gothic turns up. Oh, with my fix setting, nothing does. So I'll just keep trying some different filters because I think that's quicker than me going through and trying to find exactly what I like by just scrolling. So again, I'm not liking that. Not a fan of Comic Sans. I don't dislike the Happy Holidays from the extra bold, but maybe if I go with a regular weight, more options pop up. I think that best option may be that original lobster too. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to increase my font size here to a large size. I think I could even go bigger than that. But that color is still not showing up. So what I'm going to do is switch back to my black arrow tool, or actually, sorry, keep your text tool selected. And if you go over here to your panel and select swatches, you can select the interior fill color as well as an exterior stroke outline color for your font. So just to change it to be more visible, I'm going to select this preset red and I'll click off. As you can see, that's much more visible now. But if that's still not the exact shade that you're going for or wanting for your project, you can go to this color panel and you can adjust it via the options here. However, this initial view that you have for color, it only shows you from the color to white. You can change that by going to this hamburger, these 4 lines here in the corner, and changing that to either a print preset CMYK if you're thinking you're going to send this out both digitally and physically, or if you're going to work solely digitally, which we are today, we're going to switch to RGB, Roy G. Biv, so that we can adjust the gradient value or select something from this spectrum to adjust our color range. I think I want this to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to start by dragging this across the top to a darker value, maybe increasing this, taking out a little bit of blue. And if I click off, you can see it's adjusted automatically. And I personally, I like that darker red on top of this. I think I probably need to increase the size just again, because there's a lot going on in the background. And if that background is too distracting, something you can do is actually select that black arrow, select your background. And here in effects, you can fix the opacity of that object. And opacity just means the visibility of it. So you can drag it here. You can see you can take it completely out because you're basically saying, I want this to be a little bit transparent. So if you're worried about it having too strong an opacity, you can drag this until you get kind of your desired quality. I think the 90 gives the text a little bit more of a bolder appearance, so I think I'm happy with that. Now, that's just for the object. You can play around with settings just to see how it works. You can see kind of what happens, what effect happens, if anything. Because this is a preset image we imported, there's not much to change with the fill. We haven't done anything in InDesign to adjust the fill, so it's not really going to do anything. Now, if we were doing something with a shape that we created in InDesign and we filled it, then yes, there would be an effect. But in this case, we did not. Now, right now, oops, that's another important factor. That rinse and repeat comes back, and you want to make sure you're always switching back to your tools. An easy fix for that is you can also always hit escape, and whatever tool you're in, it will revert back to this black arrow. So I think I want this text to be a little bigger, and what I'm going to do is actually change the orientation of it. I'm going to center it. And if I want it centered in this space, what I can do is actually click and drag. Well, normally what happens is there it is. That purple arrow pops up. So I found the vertical center of the page. And if I drag down, I can also find that horizontal and vertical center to get it centered completely in the page. However, if you don't want to click and drag, what you can do is actually go over to another panel, align, and align to page, and you can align it centered for both without having to find those purple lines as you're dragging. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. But it's very useful when you have multiple items on the page that you want to have aligned consistently or to a specific element on your page. So I still think this font's too small. I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to increase it to 72 now. Now, if you're not seeing a value that you want, you can click here and you can type a specific value. So just for instance, 80, but you want to make sure that you have it highlighted, otherwise it's not going to do anything. And for me personally, I find the larger I make this, the more legible it's going to be. And if you wanted to have this different in terms of orientation, something you can do to just try out some other fun things, go here to your layers panel. You can actually click this down arrow. You can hide elements on your page from view and create new versions of it in the same space, just to play around with it. Now, I actually don't want to create another text box for this. I just want to show you another way of going about it. You can create a line. And the reason why I have this on the text panel is because what I'm going to do is type on a path. So by drawing that line and then clicking and holding on the type tool, I can type on a path. And then you'll see whenever that cross icon pops up on your type tool and you click, it's going to allow you to then type on that path. And then you do the same thing as before. You highlight, you select a font, and you adjust the size and color. Now, any previous value that you create for a color, what we didn't do last time is actually save that value that we previously created. So I really liked that red that we made last time. I have an icon that says it's not quite right. That's okay. That works enough for me. And you can actually add that to swatches now. And it'll appear down there. So the problem with trying to create another line when you're typing on a path is if you click enter, it's just going to disappear and you're going to end up with this red cross element right there. So if I switch back to my black arrow and I click that and I click anywhere off, it's going to create something new, but it's just going to create it in a text box. So actually what I want to do is delete, draw another line. And you can see it's going to try and guide me. An easier way to do what I just did, delete, might have been just to click this and copy and paste. And I'm using Control-C and Control-V for that. But what it's doing is it's also going to copy the overset text. Now, you can just delete the previous text that you used, or you can actually delete all the text on the second line and just connect that overset to the previous line. Again, there's no wrong or right way to do it. It's just whichever way is going to be easiest for you. So what I want to do is actually increase the font size again. And I'm going to go as big as 90. I do want consistent font size. But I don't want that line to show up. So what I'm going to do in my swatches panel is actually select none, and that line then disappears. It's still there. It's just no longer visible. So as you can see, if I drag along it, InDesign still knows that that line is there. It's just not going to read it. So this is the basics of getting your graphics and a text and font on your page. Now to add an interactive component to this, because that's the beauty of doing this all online, is you get to add some fun elements. What we're going to do is use this animation panel down here, but first and foremost, we're going to rinse and repeat. We're going to go back to our rectangle frame tool because we're going to import the element that we want to animate. So I'm going to draw a square right here. And luckily for me, I still have that graphics layer selected. However, if I didn't, let's say for instance, I had the text tool selected and I drew another rectangle and I was like, whoops, I need that on my graphics layer. You can change that really easily by just holding on that layers panel and dragging it down. And look, the outline changes. Now, again, if you're going to import this image, we're going to do Control Command D or File Place and pull up the images we want. I'm going to use this fun snowflake that I previously saved. And I'm saying that it's not visible. So first and foremost, fitting and fit content proportionally. There it is. And I'm going to do the same thing to this other square that I created. Now, if you wanted to change the name of whatever image or layer that you have, you can do snowflake 1. And this, all I'm doing is kind of double clicking on the name. Sometimes it works quicker than others in Snowflake 2, just to make it a little bit more easy to differentiate. Your layers panel is all about organization and helping you. So if you aren't understanding what is what, an easy way is first just select this kind of square on the end to see, okay, this is what that element is. This is what this image is. And then you can rename it to where it's something at a glance you can easily view. Now we have the same issue here where, as you can see, there's this large overset with the orange kind of barrier here. That's what we had originally with this image. So that means it imported at a much larger size. So we're going to right click, fitting, fit content proportionally. It now fits within. What I'm going to do is actually go ahead and make sure that I fix that content aware fit my frame to content. And I'm going to go back and make sure I do that with the other one too. This is just a neatness factor. It makes it a lot neater to work. Whoops, I clicked the wrong thing. And you can see how that works as well. So Control Z, right click, fit frame to content. So now I want to add that fun animation factor. So what I'm going to do is open that animation panel, and I have that image selected. And if it's not easily viewed, you can click and drag it up. It doesn't have to remain over here. It's just whatever's easiest for you in your workspace. So as you can see, it's currently grayed out. That's not what I'm wanting. Want to make sure that this is something that I can use to animate. Aha, so our happy we can animate. So we'll start with that. And we are going to have it fly in from left. And you can have this on page load, or you can have it on click, whichever starting point works best for you. So I'm going to leave it on page load, and I'm going to have it last about 5 seconds. I'm going to have it play once, and I'm not going to put it on loop because otherwise it will keep doing it for forever. But as you can see, we now have that animation on our screen. It's that green line indicating the direction. And all those dots on there kind of indicate how long it's going to take. Now you can drag that to make it longer, shorter. If you wanted to adjust the direction, it's going to work like any other line element on your page. So you could even theoretically kind of adjust it to where it goes in whatever direction you're wanting. Just note that if it moves where you had it placed on the page and you don't like that, Control Z is your best friend to make sure that it still moves the way you want. And if you're not sure about how it's going to look, that's where we have that interactivity preview, and you can hit play to kind of preview what that's going to look like there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's okay. It could be confused about how elements are working. You can also click the preview. Maybe that'll work better. So things don't always work as expected. That's okay. It's all part of the process, just experimenting and finding out what works best and what doesn't. So we now have that second line. We can rename that holiday. And we can also still have that fly in from the left. We want to match the same second. So we're going to update that to 5. We're going to have it play one time. If you're concerned about any other aspects of it, you can adjust the rotation, the size of it. So it's really, it's not a complicated animation feature that you have here, but it is very useful for the basic elements, which makes it really useful for creating your eCard. All right, so we're going to keep that. I like that. And still like that. Cool. We're going to try again. There we go. It's recognizing our snowflake now. And for this, I actually want to do a fly in from top. And what I'm going to do is actually drag this down now. And then another factor is I actually want this to spin like a snowflake as it falls down. So I'm going to have it rotate 180. And the duration, I'm also going to increase this. I want this to be kind of slow, so I'm going to increase it to 7 seconds. And I'm actually okay having this on a loop. So you can set a number of times for it to play, or by setting a loop, you can have some elements just repeat constantly for as long as they have it up. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and do that as well with our second one. It's still grayed out, doesn't like it as much. Not sure what's going on with that one. There we go. So again, sometimes the best thing to do is click on and off your images until they decide to work. There's a million different ways to do everything that you want. So you can have a preset image to where it just rotates. But I really like the idea of falling snow. So I'm going to have it also fly in from top. And I'm going to have this one be a little higher. And if you're wanting to be specific about the placement, adjusting with the arrow keys on your keyboard will allow you to have a little bit more precise control. Now, by dragging this down around the text there, I can see I'm getting a lot of overlap. But again, because our layers are set up to where that text is on top of the graphics, I don't have to worry about it going in front of the text. So I think that's a pretty good placement there. I'm going to go ahead and increase that to match the other one to 7 seconds. I'm going to have it on loop, and I'm going to have the rotate feature going the opposite way. Okay. Let's see if a preview works. If the preview panel is not working for whatever reason, that's okay. There are other options. As you can see, I think it's loading. Aha, there we go. Exporting to HTML. Oh, so there's our holiday. There's our snow. But oh no, okay, there's our second snowflake. But we don't have our happy. So that's a good thing to note. That's a good thing to figure out. So if something's not working right, that's where you get to go and check the timing for everything. So we want it on page load. And again, your order here. So for everything listed there, that's what is currently animated. And the order of it is what is being animated first, just like your layers panel. So we're missing the happy. So what we're going to do is actually select that. And we're going to check that. We're going to check that it's actually going to end up in our list. So it has all the features still there. Oh, we don't need a rotation. Okay. So that means aha. So you always want to make sure your event is selected. So I forgot to select on page load. So now when we go to our timing panel, we can see that that's now listed. Now we want happy to be in front of holiday, so I'm going to drag that up and I'll drag holiday down. Or I shall attempt to until I get what I want. There we go. So now when we do our preview, I'm going to stop this preview and we're going to start the new one. It should work like we want. Because again, we're concerned with our output. So we're going to allow it to convert to HTML. Ah, there we go. So you can end up with a lot of fun features here. You could have flowers grow with your eCard. And how you would do that would be selecting the preset kind of shrink or grow large. There's a lot of basic features that work well to do a lot of heavy lifting just within the software. And if you just wanted to have something without animation, we could actually turn off the animation and just save it as is in a PDF, and you can embed that into an email, or most other social media applications will accept that as well. So I'm going to put the animation panel over here. And what I want to show is actually up here at the top, we have this share icon. You can export it as a PDF, share for review, you can export it or publish online. So if you're going to have all these animated features, I would recommend using the publish online feature because it's pretty cool. What it does is it actually generates a web link, and that web link you can publish to pretty much any medium that you would like. And it's a free URL. You can come back to this same InDesign document and update it later. You can add more pages to it if you're going to add on to your card. And that makes it a fun activity then that you can consistently add to. If you have like a family photo, you can have a lot of fun with it. So we're going to go ahead and play around, see what the publish online does. It may take a moment to load. A good rule of thumb is just wait 10 seconds. And when in doubt, try again. So I'm not 100% that it worked. Aha, and there it is. And then you can view it and share that URL with whoever you would like. Another way to just send it as an embedded image or GIF for your email would be to save it as an HTML link and then convert it to a GIF. There's a number of free converters you can use online. So are there any questions over what we've done today?
Doesn't seem to be. I think everyone was pretty much understanding of what you were talking about.
Okay, cool. At this time, we're kind of out of time. I apologize, but if there's any final questions or anything that you want to know before we go today, please do feel free to ask right now. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And if you have any thoughts or questions later, do not hesitate to reach out through email or respond to that survey we will send out about our class. And if you have anything else you want to learn, please indicate that in the survey. We would love to teach more classes that you guys want to know or learn new skills for. So thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Bye.